At the Tour de France, the yellow jersey is a symbol of excellence and represents the biggest honour a cyclist can obtain in the sport. In the absence of a prologue start, achieving the ultimate goal of capturing this prize is now a possibility for every rider in the race. Today, as the first pedal strokes in search of yellow are turned, the big question is, who wants it most? Will a breakaway artist escape and fulfill a lifelong dream? Will there be a showdown between the sprinters where inches can determine their fate? Or will an overall contender spoil everyone's party and make a statement from day one? Visions of yellow will dance in everyone's mind as stage one of the 2008 Tour de France begins next on Versus. After 105 years, the Tour de France has lost none of its magnetism. We are now at Europe's most westerly point, Brest, as they face up to the opening day of 21. 123 miles going from Brest to Plumelec. We are ready now on the Tour de France. So too is America. Team Garmin-Chipotle is the new team on the block as they show off the new colours just 48 hours ago. And there's some young riders there facing their first tour. There's some old boys too on the new Team High Road, which is now Team Columbia. George Hincapie, for example, is facing up to his 13th Tour de France. Absolutely remarkable. And this is a look at the finishing line of today's stage. It most certainly is not flat. It is 2 kilometres uphill. It's going to be a tough day for everybody. There's a strong wind too, by the way. I'm Phil Liggett. This is Paul Sherwin, 7 times a Tour rider. We are all set to enjoy what I think will be a great Tour de France this year. But there's not one, but 2 American teams in the race this year.
I think that's unprecedented, Phil. It really is an exciting moment, I think, for American cycling. Not only for the fact that we've got 2 teams from the United States in the Tour de France this year, but 2 great, serious corporate sponsors have decided to back the sport of professional cycling. But, you know, the red, white and blue was raised initially a long time ago, back in 1986 by 7-Eleven, who were in the Tour de France from 86 through to 1990. The mantle was then taken over by Motorola from 1991 to 1996, then US Postal Service, followed then by Team Discovery Channel for 3 years, and now 2 teams on the start line of the Tour de France this year, Team Columbia and Team Garmin-Chipotle. And I think the exciting thing about Team Garmin-Chipotle, Phil, is they're not going to get lost over this 3 weeks because they've got a great GPS system.
Well, they'll bring them right to this finishing line over my shoulder here. That's where the riders will finish at the top of the climb. And the Tour this year, no time bonuses, or a little bit easier to understand perhaps. Let's have a look now at all the leaders' jerseys in the Tour de France. And we'll go with Ed Jones making sense of the Tour.
Well, we're going to try and make sense of the Tour every day throughout the next 3 weeks. Of course, the ultimate goal is the yellow jersey. That's the one that everybody wants to get. The rider who wins that will be the man who covers the distance in the shortest time. But the most consistent rider on every individual stage is the man who will wear the green jersey. Placing in the top 25 on every stage will get you points. The first man over the top of the high spots of the mountains will earn points for the King of the Mountains classification, and he will write his name into the history books. And if you're 25 years of age and younger, you've got a chance to be the best young rider in the Tour de France, and that will take you the white jersey.
Yes, those jerseys are the most treasured possessions in the world of cycling. The yellow there, the general classification. Green is the points, the polka dot is the mountains, and the best rookie, he gets a white jersey. Well, let's have a look how the race got underway. It's a couple of hours ago now since they left Brest, and we expected a big crowd in Brest because this is one of the most popular areas for the sport of cycling. 180 riders rolling away, 17 kilometres into the stage, and as we expected, they were on the attack. An 8-man breakaway forming by the top of the first climb on the Côte de Jupic after 29 kilometres. A good battle this for points for the first King of the Mountains climb of this year's Tour, and just when Voigtler thought he was going to win it, Bjorn Schroeder of Milram nipped over the top. Schroeder, Voigtler, De La Fuente of Sony Duval was the order there. They led at this point by 8.25 minutes, and then they were attacking each other. Stefan Ogier jumping away on the second climb after 48 kilometres or 30 miles. Thought he did quite well. Well, they all went past him, and the battle was at the front again for the points in the King of the Mountains. Thomas Voigtler was the man this time who would go over the line first, ahead of Schroeder and Geoffroy Lecatre was in third place.
Well, a little bit later on up the road, there was a first sprint point, and that was really well disputed. You can see the man in the white jersey there wanted to get him some points. Now, this is towards the green jersey competition for the most consistent rider, and this went to Lecatre, who got across the line in first place there, just ahead of Lilian Jegou, and of course, Ruben Perez took himself across the line there in third.
And then they regrouped just a little bit. Another climb, actually a col this time rather than a côte. The Col de Touleron after 85 kilometres. And this suited Lilian Jegou, who got away at the bottom and was still clear at the top. Thomas Voeckler building a lead now in the King of the Mountains on day one, ahead of Schroeder there, his main rival in the breakaway. He went across in third place. And just one more sprinter to wrap up the story so far at 90 kilometres. It was Geoffroy Lecatre again. Good sprint. They really have been racing in this breakaway today. Stéphane Ogier in red getting second. Lilian Jegou in third. The peloton at 4 minutes 40 as they cross the sprint line in Gouram. Well, let's go down to the action now. The riders have just passed through the feeding station. There they are, taking on their bags. And the breakaway is still over 4 minutes clear of the field and looking good. But the field aren't letting them go, Paul, because, in fact, a lot of riders from Caisse d'Epargne are working to... Oh, and there's been a crash. Well, and that's Hervé Duclos-Lassalle.
Well, this is always the most dangerous part of any stage of the Tour, Phil, the feeding station. You've got 180 riders going left and right looking for their feeding bags. This is the son of Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle, a two-time winner of the Paris-Roubaix. He's had one win so far this season, but this is really bad luck, you know, Phil. And in fact, he's alongside the race doctor there. He's banging the car. I tell you one thing, on day one, that man looks as if he's in an awful lot of pain.
Well, let's see what he's done here. This is a great shame because his dad was so famous in the sport, and here's a guy hoping to emulate him. The docs are all out there, the team car is up, the race is going on, of course, and ouch, that looks to me like it is a very seriously damaged left wrist. I'm feeling the worst here.
Well, I fear the worst as well, Phil. I have to say the doctor is up alongside him for an awful long time there. They're calling forward for an ambulance. You can see the driver of the doctor's car on the left-hand side of that cabriolet, and I think they're calling that out. Let's have a look and see if we can see exactly how that happened. There you can see halfway through the main field, and I'm trying to see, there you go. He's just touched the wheel of a rider in front of him, right in the middle of the road. You see, today is the first day. There are no time bonuses. We've talked all about that. This is going to be a very nervous stage.
A touch of wheel is a silly mistake, I'm afraid to say, in that line of riders. But look at this now. They're already putting this in a soft cast, so he'll be off to hospital for an x-ray. He's out of the Tour de France. We've only done 90 kilometres, about 55 miles done. Well, let's get back up to the action here. As we see the riders eating the food they've just taken on board. The breakaway is 8 riders. I'll give you the names now. It's getting a busy day already. Ruben Perez, Euskaltel Euskadi, Jose Luis Arrieta, AG2R, Geoffroy Lecatre, Voeckler, Bouygues Telecom, Bjorn Schroeder of Milram, Lilian Jegou of FDJ.com, David de la Fuente, Sonia Duval, and Stéphane Ogier of Cofidis. Every rider in the breakaway, Paul, has ridden at least one Tour de France before.
And I think everybody realizing that today is a very important day, because unlike in the past when we've had the individual prologue time trial to start the day off, there's been a hierarchy formed. Today, the first man to cross the line is going to get himself the yellow jersey, and that is a great chance for, I have to say, sadly, only 179 riders, because we are hearing that Hervé Duclos-Lassalle has been evacuated from the race, and he'll be on his way now to the nearest hospital to see whether or not that injury is a break in his forearm at all. Well, I have to say, though, Phil, that leading breakaway got themselves a maximum advantage of 7 minutes and 50 seconds at one time. It is now starting to come down, 4 minutes and 17 seconds, so it's going in the right direction for the main field, but maybe not in the right direction for Thomas Voeckler, just there on the left-hand side.
So as we look at the breakaway here, settling in, still full of determination. We've seen that terrible crash to Hervé Duclos-Lassalle, but you know, as one dream has apparently just ended in this year's Tour de France, there are many dreams still in this.
And I think that is Stéphane Ogier popping off the front.
It certainly is, and he's the most experienced. He's got 6 Tours de France under his wheels, not quite the 9 of Arrieta in here as well, and he's gone, and the gap is 1:32. There's the attack he's launching here. Looking here at Stéphane Ogier, who's just this second attack from the breakaway of 8 riders, because he sensed now the catch is imminent. It's 1:28, 36 kilometres from the finish. The result, by the way, of the sprint at Remugol with 40 kilometres to go. It was Lecatre who wiped out the board today, winning all 3 sprints. Ruben Perez and Lilian Jegou.
Well, this is Schroeder going off the back, caught out in the crossfire there because of that acceleration from Stefan Ogier, and that would indicate that Schroeder is actually a little bit weaker. Now that gives the advantage to Thomas Voeckler. I still feel these guys are going to get caught, but Voeckler may survive better on the final climb to the finish here in Plumelec, and that's what Voeckler has been dreaming about since the start of the day. But just look at the leaves on the trees here. It is so windy out there on the course. These riders at the end of today will have had a hard day in the saddle.
And it's not the time to remind them they've got 20 more days to go in the Tour de France, and of course there'll be harder days in the high mountains, and that goes David de la Fuente. He's launched an attack. You see, that's the way to go. When they chase someone down, they're out of breath, but there's a good reaction there, and that looks as though it's Lilian Jegou who is now going after de la Fuente, and no reaction. Voeckler looking for somebody else to move.
Yeah, look at the pause. Everybody's now waiting for the next guy to go. They don't want to do the move themselves because they don't want to waste that energy, and it's going to be Stefan Ogier in the red shorts of Cofidis.
He was the one that put in the first attack, and they're all on him. They were waiting for him to come from the back, and Voeckler just looking for Bjorn Schroeder, putting him in front of him where he can see him and taking the back. So there is a reaction now, and once these boys start doing these cat and mouse tactics, the gap will close.
That's the problem of this acceleration here and this breaking down of the momentum, because when you're all working together as a solid unit, you keep your average speed up at 42, 43 kilometers an hour. When you've got this acceleration and deceleration, yes, you might go up to 45, 46 kilometers an hour, but then you slow down a lot, and that actually lowers the average speed that the breakaway is attaining. So I think we're going to see these riders get caught pretty shortly, but these two, for the moment, have escaped the fold.
Well, this is the way you form the counter-attack, if you like. And for a while they'll chase. If they feel they're going clear, they'll drop off. De la Fuente just checking it out. He rode very well in the King of the Mountains last year, David de la Fuente. He was always up there. He finished 3rd in the competition, and he was the leader of the King of the Mountains. He did pull on the polka dot jersey in 2006.
Very aggressive rider he was in that Tour de France as well. He was in the breakaway on a number of occasions, and that's probably what he's looking for today. Green and white on the front, so that is Crédit Agricole doing the work there for their man Thor Hushovd, who they feel has got the ability to get to the top of this climb in first place. But I wonder if Thor Hushovd is thinking about the first road stage of the Dauphiné Libéré. There was a similar finish to this with a little climb up to it. Hushovd was looking to get himself the yellow jersey, but he got popped on the line by a certain Alejandro Valverde.
Yes, that's worth remembering right now. 34 to go. Just looking here, 3:59 is the gap right now. That's just the time rather that we've been riding the race. Boy, there would be shocks there. Well, in the old days, remember, this race was won by 2 3/4 hours by Maurice Guérin, the chain-smoking chimney sweep back in 2003. Got disqualified in 2004. I think he shortcut the course. As we look here at Lilian Jegou, who's up now with David de la Fuente, as they continue now to try and get themselves away from the other 8 riders. That leaves 6 behind to chase, and they're not organised anymore. Look at the lovely crowds here. This is Brittany with its summer bonnet on, that's for sure now, as they're watching a Spanish rider lead a Frenchman through the countryside. And you can hear the cheers. The crowd here just love their cycle racing. When we have races in this area, in the Morbihan, we see so many spectators along the route. Well, the attacks are starting again. There's the peloton. They're no longer slumbering. The race is very much on for the first Maillot Jaune. Side at 20 miles from the finish of today's stage of the Tour de France, the beautiful chateau of Brittany. They've never seen it quite all before, because the Tour de France today is coming home to Plumelec. Hasn't been here for 11 years, but Brittany playing host to the start of the 95th running of the event. This is the peloton beginning to slowly but surely close in at 1 minute and 30 seconds. There are still the 8 riders out in front, as these riders now chase those 2 we saw break away. They're being chased by 6 riders, the peloton at 1.5 minutes. So about 19 miles, Paul, still to run. The last 2 kilometers, 1.2 miles, are what everybody will be afraid of. Peloton getting the benefit of the inside turn there on that big traffic circle. But now they are turning these pedals in anger. It's been a very good breakaway today by those 8 up front. The 2 riders still clear at 1:28 to chat. Goodness knows in what language. I'm not sure what David de la Fuente speaks apart from Spanish.
Well, pretty much even to this day, the international language in professional cycling is French, and most of the Spanish riders speak a smattering of French, and most of the French riders speak a little bit of Italian or French, although I have to say, since my day, one of the predominant languages that's come into the sport, which certainly didn't exist in the 1970s and 80s, is English. A lot of riders speak English these days.
It is, and in fact, take for example...
crash!
Oh, another crash has gone down again, and AG2R is on the Bouygues Telecom, it is, and that is Xavier Florencio who's gone down. 107 is Stefan Goubert. This is how it happened, and look at those boys, how quick their reactions are as they grab for the brakes. Ripped the only 2 or 3 fallers, Paul, and that fell right up the peloton.
Yeah, but as I told you, it's at the back end of the main field. You should not ride at the back end of the peloton, especially on the first day. That's Stefan Goubert as well, by the way, who's gone down, and he's a guy who's got a very good chance of riding high in the overall classification. 148 is Johann Schopp, the Swiss rider on Team Bouygues Telecom, walking down the road to see whether or not he can get a slightly quicker wheel change.
Well, these boys won't attack when they hear a crash, but they're not going to slow down either. And you see the peloton is in full cry now. They're hitting 40-45 kilometers an hour as they race to bring back those 2 leaders.
Well, 21 kilometers to go, Phil, with a 2-man breakaway off the front. The yellow jersey up for grabs. Nobody's slowing down. It's not flat. And there is no flat part of the course between here and the finish line. In fact, the last 1.7 kilometers are completely uphill.
Well, a lot of work being done at the front now by Marcus Burkhardt. He's the pacemaker for Team Columbia, and he might be softening the trail up. Somebody like Kirken to attack at the foot of the final ascent. Maybe Big George Hincapie feels he's got the legs to win it out in the sprint. Now, these are the rejoining of the riders, and I'm glad they've got back into the race here. This is Alexander Kuzinski of Belarus, number 66. I didn't quite see who the other 2 were, but they're coming back nicely.
Well,
one will be Stefan Goubert on the far right there.
Yeah, one name to throw in from Team Liquigas for later on in the Tour de France is Roman Kreuziger. We haven't seen much of him today, but he created a bit of a surprise just over a week and a half ago by winning the Tour of Switzerland, and a lot of people are tipping him to be the big surprise outsider in the Tour de France this year. 23 years of age, a man to follow. Right now, let's follow these 2 guys at the front end. David de la Fuente himself, a fairly young rider in the yellow, and Lilian Jégu here from FDJ. Look at the way he's starting to hunch up his shoulders now. It's beginning to hurt, but you can accept that hurt that little bit longer when you think, I might win a stage of the Tour de France, and on a very rare occasion I might cross the line and get myself a yellow jersey. But if you look at the clock,
peloton are really flying now. We are about 9 seconds off the catch. It hasn't happened yet, and Silence Lotto are trying to get control of it, and there's been a crash at the back here. That's why the riders are walking. Where are the fallers here? Because the peloton has been brought to a standstill on this narrow climb, and it's on the right, and it looks as though it's Team Barloworld trying to sort out the problem. And that looks to me like Juan Mauricio Soler there, the leader of Barloworld. Oh dear, he's holding his wrist as well. I hope this isn't going to be a deja vu as we've just seen with Hervé Duclos-Lassalle. The field is speeding away. These boys are left on the floor here. They'll get a separate time anyway. They're too far out for the same time, and they're not in a hurry to get away. The Lampre team car has stopped. I don't see any Lampre riders down there, so they've moved away. It's certainly Mauricio Soler who won the King of the Mountains last year. Meanwhile, at the front, there is the catch. These are the riders coming up. It's all over. We are now peloton Group A for the finish, and it's sad to say that it looks as though Mauricio Soler is going to have to hopefully at least finish the stage. That would be a huge blow to the South African team at Barloworld. A shake of hands there by the 2 leaders, and what has happened here? This is a chase back, and that's the Barloworld riders again overshooting the corner. And there he was trying to rejoin the field, because it is Mauricio Soler here who is now racing to try and get back on terms. Well, at least he's riding, and that's all that matters right now. A very tall, thin rider, you know. It's very difficult sometimes to get round corners. Not quite as centrifugally balanced as a small rider. Well, it's all action now, Paul, and Mauricio Soler at least looks like he might be, he's riding at least, so he's going to get back in, I hope. But if not, he'll live to fight another day. That's important.
I don't think he's going to get himself back into the main field, Phil, because the main field is split completely because of that accident. I was happy to see Chris Froome was the rider who stopped there to try and pace him back into the main field, but we're now looking at 6 kilometers to go, and it's really becoming a very tense moment. The main field has pretty much split into 2 or 3 different groups, just as it did back in 1997.
Deja vu as the riders now are feeling the pressure of the narrow roads here, and we haven't got to the bridge yet.
Well, this is the front group. The front group has managed to get themselves together, a little bit calm now. They know they've got themselves through the first part of the danger of this run in towards the finish. Inside of 6 kilometers to go. A lot of riders at the back now are scrambling, trying to catch up before the start of this climb so as they don't lose any time on the first day of racing. The pressure is there. You can see Team Silence Lotto there. They're looking after them. And there's Cadel Evans.
Yes.
Already on day one, riding in 3rd or 4th position. Here you can see our Team Bala World. Juan Maurizio Soler on the front there, 57. Chris Froome, he's riding his first Tour de France here, Phil, trying to get his leader back into the main field.
And the other rider with him, Gianpaolo Ciulla. So you've got Soler, the 51. He's the man who is being protected and helped here by the team. The hard workers, of course, the first-timers in the Tour have been sent back to get that man up to the pace. I don't think it'll happen, but it might. 5 kilometers to go. At least Soler will climb well when he gets up towards the finish. Margus Berghout again at the front. Looks like Adam Hansen maybe up here as well as they try to guide this race towards the finish for Team Columbia. As I say, it will be a big turn-up for the team were they to win today. In their new colours, which they only saw for the first time yesterday morning.
Well, look how many pale blue jerseys are at the front of this main field from Team Columbia. You've got one Armada on the right-hand side. They're looking after Kim Kirken. On the left-hand side, I'm not sure whether or not they're trying to keep Mark Cavendish at the front end of the main field. But now the nerves are really starting to come in. It's so important to stay in the first 15 to 25 places. I always say it is important because there is where you avoid the crashes. That's why Team Silence Lotto brought Cadel Evans to the front to make sure he wasn't involved in any of those fracas at the back.
Absolutely. The only way is to get your team captains up to the front of the race, then drive the race so fast that nobody can change their position in the pack. And that is exactly what's happening now. 3.8 kilometers, and it is the boys in blue of Team Columbia here. They're either looking for a win by Kim Kirken or George Hincapie. I don't see George there.
Well, I tell you what, I just caught a quick glimpse of the heart rate there of Adam Hansen, Phil. It was up to 170 beats a minute. His cadence was up to 100, almost 800 watts. This is because now the pressure is seriously on. It's hurting.
Well, Adam Hansen on the front, just about to be pushed to the back here, but he's driving on. He won his national time trial champion of Australia, little town of Buninyong in the state of Victoria. And there's a bit of cyclocross on the right there as a rider goes off course. One of the Gerolsteiner boys, might have been Robert Foster.
Well, it's, you know, this is really getting very grippy now. 3 kilometers to go, 1.8 miles of racing. We're not too far away from that nasty little bridge, which we're expecting these riders to go through in excess of 50 miles an hour. Then you have to change to the complete end of your gear ratios and start climbing up that final climb of the day. 1.7 kilometers here to Plumelec. The wind is not going to be an important factor now, but this is great to see. This team is a team of musketeers. You know, Team Columbia have been one of the most successful teams on the circuit this year, whether it be the men's team or the women's team as Team High Road, and now they are riding on the crest of a wave, knowing that the first man to cross the line gets the yellow jersey.
Well, the other riders up there in the white and blue is Team Quickstep from Belgium, and they're either riding here for Stein de Volder, their leader, or Gert Stegmans, the rider who won the stage into Ghent in Belgium when we crossed the channel after we left Great Britain last year. 2.1. I think it's around 1.9 to go when we get to that bridge, Paul. These boys are now racing down towards the bridge. We estimate the speed here, and it's upsetting our cameras a little bit, to be in the region of 80 kilometers an hour, because it is a downhill drop to the bridge and they will make a right turn. And this is the bridge as they make the turn there, and the leaders are safely round. They've done well. They've made it look almost too easy, but they're all safely round. Breathe a sigh of relief.
One rider there from Team Columbia moving out of the way. He's done his job for the day, but they've still got 2 or 3 riders at the front end of this main field. I wouldn't be surprised to see Erik Zabel not too far away, and I think in fact in around about 4th position. There he is, the old man of the sport. Erik Zabel is riding in 4th position. He won here in 1997, and
he relied heavily on Bjarne Riis to help him up the hill, while Bjarne Riis is watching from the team cars now. He won the Tour de France back in 1996 and has retired, but Zabel will never retire. He'll go on till he's 100, and he sat in there at 38 years of age. He is riding his 14th, I think it is 14th Tour de France, as we got an attack going on the right.
Fabian Wegmann, the champion of Germany, and this is exactly what outfoxed Erik Zabel a couple of years ago, because there was a late attack came. It's not the champion of Germany. In fact, it's a rider from Agritubel.
This is right from Agu Tubel, who's made the move here, and it would be the sort of move by Romain Feylu, who has made a move on the climb, and I think he's gone too early, but it is indeed Feylu who's gone as he starts to climb here, and he's got a little gap over the field, and this is the moment of confusion. Who's going to take up the chase, because they don't want to waste their energy, and this is a good gamble by the Frenchman, but now comes Gerolsteiner.
Gerolsteiner have got themselves organised. This is the counter move now. Feylu really himself a little bit of a sprinter, I felt, was going just a bit too early there, but now we've got Gerolsteiner. This looks like Stefan Schumacher.
Well, this could be a good move from Stefan Schumacher. He once won the Amstel Gold Race on a move like this up the Kouwberg in the south of Holland. He's now made he's got an enormous gap. There'll have to be a quick reaction to close this down. We're looking for the 1 kilometre to go. This drag will split the field up for sure now as he continues to count. Now the field is starting to rip from behind.
Well, they're all over. You've got to convict yourself now just to keep going. You cannot pause at a moment like this. Eric Zabel is still pretty much up there. They're now starting to get the headwind into their faces, these riders, as they come up the last little bit of curlies, as they come up towards the top. Schumacher looking over his shoulder to see whether or not he's got the power still to go. The main field is still all over. There is Alejandro Valverde in the middle, the champion of Spain. He's looking for the gap. He wants to win this. Coming across there is Kim Kirken. Kirken has made the junction. Now he makes the move.
Kirken has gone over the top, and I saw also Valverde and Philippe Gilbert in white as Kirken tries to go clear now, and there's a move from a Lampre rider. Is it Cunego? No, it's not, right on his back wheel. I think Kim Kirken's gone a little bit too soon here, Paul.
Well, I think that's Alessandro Balán there in second place, but look, in fact, you can see Kirken is opening up the gap here. Schumacher's gone backwards. There is Cadel Evans in about 4th position. He's pretty happy just to be there. We're inside of 250 metres to go, and this is going to be a great move coming round the corner. 41. Well,
this was what was planned. Kim Kirken, Alan Piper said he hoped it, but that Valverde, I think, has taken a flyer from the line. Alexander Valverde is heading home. Well, his team said he would win. He seems to want the yellow jersey from day one, the hot favourite with Cadel Evans, and that is an incredible win for Alejandro Valverde. Philippe Gilbert, I think, will have got second place on the line there. Paul, the power of that man.
Well, I think not only the power of Alejandro Valverde, but the way he remained calm and collected and watched the race unfold in front of him, and then all of a sudden he came out to take the big pay packet there this afternoon, and this really has split the field, because we're still going to wait for a good couple of minutes before everybody comes up to the finish line. But Alejandro Valverde is the top man. We know he's got the form. He's just won the national championships, but there he very easily dominated that win. Everybody tried, they threw everything at it, and he came up with the goods.
One man we didn't see trying to get clear there was Cadel Evans, but I think he was just trying to stay safe and get the same time. But you know, Valverde came clear of the field there. He will have nibbled a few seconds on the clock, I think, which will give him an overall lead of note in the Tour de France. He wanted to open with a stage win. He's got his wish, but it means he pulls on yellow tonight, and that means 3 weeks of hard work for his team. It was his 9th victory already of the season. He only won 5 the whole year last year, and just look at these groups coming in. Big time gaps tonight.
Well, the last news I heard on Race Radio, Phil, was in fact Juan Mauricio Soler of Team Barlow World was more than a minute behind with 3 kilometres to go, so he's going to use huge chunks of time here this afternoon. But that was a dominating performance. There he is now, coming up the line, and he's going to have lost himself a good 2.5 minutes, Phil, by the end of the stage, and that's a little bit of a shame.
Well, he's fighting on here, but when bad luck hits like that, then you change your targets, and his target is the King of the Mountains now, which he won last year as a surprise. He was coming here, I think, for a top 6 finish and possibly a King of the Mountains title again. Losing this sort of time, I think he has to reassess and just concentrate on the King of the Mountains now. The clock is counting down below. The average for the day, a very quick race, 43 kilometres an hour. Nearly 25, 26, 27 miles an hour. There's Mark Cavendish coming in looking quizzical. Who won, he's saying? He's looking around hoping it was Kim Kirken, his teammate, but it wasn't. It was a national champion of Spain, Alejandro Valverde. Seems a win a week is the way to go at the moment for Valverde.
It seems to be now. Let's just have a little look at that. And there, at this point here, it looked as if Kim Kirken had got the stage, but look at this acceleration coming into that final corner. Alejandro Valverde wants the win here. He's the man who takes responsibility of the chase. Just coming into the slipstream of Kim Kirken. Thank you very much. I'll use that slipstream to accelerate, go straight by, and he has got himself a big gap. There will be a time gap tonight. It might be a second, it might be 2, but it'll be enough.
Well, that was amazing, wasn't it? It was rather like a Cancellara exhalation, that, but it wasn't. It was the new national champion of Spain, Alejandro Valverde. Don't go away. We've still got to work out who's won the King of the Mountains today. We'll take a break. Final results and podiums will be half hours today. Gilbert second, Jérôme Pinot is third. Kim Kirken for Team Colombia nearly got the big result in fourth. Ricardo Rico starting off well in fifth. So that's the situation, all 0 times. That's what they're saying officially. Cadel Evans further down in 6th place. Frank Schleck in 7th. Pozzata, we thought he might win today, 8th. Ferreira in 9th. And Oscar Pereiro, now the winner of the Tour de France with the disqualification of Floyd Landis 2 years ago. Plumelec, the Tour de France is here for the first time in 11 years, and Alejandro Valverde's on the winner's podium in Plumelec for the first time in his life. And what a finish it's turned out to be. The great Spanish champion, win number 9 of the season. First of all, it's the prize for winning the stage here in Plumelec. And he looks very satisfied with the day's work. Nice puff of relief there, Paul. Like a lot of professional cyclists, he never likes to shave on the day of a bike race.
It's always a very nervous thing, and a lot of riders believe that old wives' tale that to have every last little bit of energy, you shouldn't shave on the day of a big race. And Alejandro Valverde has subscribed to that belief as well, and it obviously worked for him this afternoon.
It certainly did. Those legs that look so thin, I'm surprised they got up the hill so fast. He's shaking hands with all the dignitary here in Plumelec. The man who's guiding him across the platform there is none other than Bernard Hinault, the last Frenchman to win the Tour de France in 1985, and also the man who won the race on 5 occasions. We've seen a great race today. I must say, Paul, I think it's a little unjust that the organisers so far have given it all the same time, but I think they're reconsidering.
I think they'll reconsider. I'm absolutely certain that there should be a 1 second time gap between those two riders, between Alejandro Valverde and the rest of the main field, and very shortly he's going to get himself what he wanted at the start of the day, his dream of yellow.
The Golden Fleece, the Maillot Jaune for Alejandro Valverde. That's what he wanted. Now he's in the hot seat, the first leader of the Tour. In the west of France, we're staying in Brittany for another day. In fact, we'll be there tomorrow as well. And today, 102 miles, we head up to Saint-Brieuc. And the weather is ever changing here. Look at these scenes at the finishing line. The wind is stretching those flags. It's going to be a tough day in the saddle, possibly a crosswind. But you know, you can never damp the enthusiasm of the Breton people. They love their cycling here. Attacks almost from the flag here today. That is Christian Prudhomme announcing the start at kilometre 0, 15 minutes after they left town in Saint-Brieuc in Auray. And there's the yellow jersey on the shoulders of the Spanish champion Alejandro Valverde. And right from the gun, Paul, there were riders on the attack. First of all, these 3 riders, Murillo Fischer, Fabien Wegman and Sylvain Chavanel, opened up a gap. But by the time they came to the first climb of the day, the situation at the front slightly different. Although Sylvain Chavanel was still there, it was now being chased by Thomas Voigtler, who just got in ahead of Bjorn Schroeder and has prized open a clear lead in the mountains, 1 point.
Yes, but by the time they came through to the sprint point, there were only 2 riders surviving from that breakaway. Chavanel, who led there across the line ahead of Thomas Voigtler, and a long way behind now starting to appear the main field. Voigtler continued to amass points on the next King of the Mountains point at 43 kilometres into the race at Quegua, getting himself another 3 points and extending his lead in that competition.
David Arroyo brought up the rear for Cees de Pon. There wasn't a sprint there. At this point, the riders had 4 minutes lead over the field. That's a big gap for these boys, and they're not chasing them at the moment either, but the weather is proving to be very changeable indeed. These are now live pictures here on the Tour de France. They are still away, these 2 riders. We're in the area of the next sprint of the day in Pontivy. We're 90 kilometres from the finishing line, so we've got quite a long way to go yet. And these 2 boys have prized open a big lead. Over 6 minutes now. Oh, it's come down a little bit. We're down to 5:20.
Well, I think the reason for this, Phil, is the fact that the main field are taking serious attention of these 2 riders, because, of course, Sylvain Chavanel, the French national time trial champion, Thomas Voigtler is a very strong bike rider. We've seen him wear the yellow jersey in the Tour de France for 10 days, but they didn't fight out that sprint. I think they're working together to try and conserve as much time as possible.
Well, there is the beauty of the Breton countryside here, as we just get a little look at the chapel of Notre-Dame de Kelvin, which the riders are just reaching now as we speak. There's the Breton flag flying alongside the French national flag. We're looking down now at the two riders, and just look at the people here on the roadside. It's such a marvellous place to race your bike.
Well, you know, this is the part of France that really loves its professional cycling. Going through the sprint at Pontivy there, Thomas Voeckler getting just second place. They're not too worried at all, I don't think, in that competition. For him, Phil, I think he's put it into his mind that he wants to try and build an unassailable lead over the first week of the Tour de France, at least in the King of the Mountains classification. But the main field are taking a serious look on these riders. They got themselves 6.5, 7 minutes advantage, and now it's slowly being held in check. By which team? The team of Alejandro Valverde, the team of Cees d'Epargne.
That's right. Well, we haven't got the third place rider yet. He hasn't arrived at Pontivy, and last time they arrived at the previous sprint at Camor, it was Robbie Hunter, the South African, who beat them all, and at that point they were only 36 seconds behind these two. But now they've been out to over 6.25 minutes. It's come back to around about 5 minutes. We're heading towards the Mur de Bretagne. The wall of Brittany is the next climb of the day. It's only a third category climb. Means the first 4 riders get points in that King of the Mountains competition. There is the peloton as they race alongside the river here and split around that roundabout, 1 or 2 taking the long way round. The big news, by the way, yesterday we saw the accident to Mauricio Sola, the big King of the Mountains winner last year on Team Barlow World. Well, he was very afraid. He'd broken a couple of bones at the base of his wrist. He's been to hospital, but you know those little scaphoid bones, they don't always show up on the x-rays. He is heavily strapped, but he has started the stage. He's been sat at the back of the pack and trying to keep out of trouble. So let's hope that he can improve and get back. There's the crowd guiding us through the race route today. And the peloton, well, they've obviously revved up a little bit since they put Cees d'Epargne on the front, because the gap has come down and is now coming down quite quickly, really, so they're not allowing these guys to run away. The leader on the road is Chavanel. He got a good result yesterday, but it's the leader at the finish that counts, of course. Still, this is Pontivy as the riders continue. Of course, it is going to be, as always, a long road to Paris, but eventually many of these riders will get there. We'll take a break. Let's hope it's a clean one now, as we're watching what I think is going to be one of the best Tours de France in years. We've been off to a great start yesterday, and it's been pretty active all day today. 3:38 now is the latest gap at 47 miles and a bit more to go. Now, a little bit of packing at the back here, Paul, and the crosswinds. As you can see, the riders are 1,000 meters away here from what I think is a feed as we approach now the big climbs. The wall is sitting just ahead. We start the climb at around about, what would it be, 88, it was 76, about 74 kilometers. So we're getting close to the climb now. That looks like the start of it just ahead, is it?
Yeah, it's just around the corner. It's about 2 kilometers after they've gone through the feeding station. The Mur de Bretagne, just by the way, out of a little bit of interest, is a linguistic border between the two languages, the Gallo language and the Breton language, and that goes back historically. It is really right in the middle of the Breton region, which is made up of 3 or 4 different departments, and there you can see the Morbihan. We're actually just leaving the Morbihan behind us at that point and going into the Côte d'Armor. That was the border of those two departments.
Lelay and Moreau do get up here. Maybe the tactics won't be as silly as we thought.
Well, I tell you what's happening. In fact, Voeckler and Chavanel, I think, have sat up and they're waiting for reinforcements to come from these two riders, because obviously
gap is
4 pairs of legs are a lot easier to succeed than just the 2 that they've had for the duration of their breakaway this afternoon, and they probably think that accepting reinforcements is a good tactic.
It makes sound thinking that, because they know the wind, and these guys, especially because they're French, they know exactly where the problems are. I'm just going to ask Paul Shoey now, when was the last time we had 4 French riders and nobody else in a breakaway?
I was just going to think,
I have no
I was just
idea.
thinking the same thing myself. It has been an awful long time since the French have dominated this event. It's been an awful long time since there's been a French winner. And the last French winner was, in fact, a Breton, Bernard Hinault.
Yes, and he would have been at the front today. I can tell you, if Bernard had been riding, he's a very proud Breton. And we're heading to where he lives, or lived, in Finiac. That's where he did most of his training. He was brought up. He used to ride to college there on his bike, probably thinking that one day he'd win the Tour de France 5 times. Well, maybe not.
Maybe not, but I tell you what, he's a tough character, and he's still pretty tough now, in fact, Bernard Hinault. His nickname is the Badger, Le Blaireau, because when you used to put him into a corner, he would certainly come out fighting.
The town of Corlay, 61.5 kilometres still to go, about 39 miles still to race to the finish at the moment. Another beautiful part of Brittany. 3 minutes 5. Well, I wonder if we get those 4 Frenchmen together. Yeah, I'd like to, because then we might see a good race on our hands here, and they are definitely waiting. So it won't be long before we see 4 guys at the front. It may even be by the time you rejoin us after the guys know the finish is just like the commentators, and they know this is a tough one today. And looking at Vogandy here, is the champion. He's got 2 teammates up there now, and I can tell you it happened in the breakaway because the 2 leaders freewheeled until the 2 French riders caught up. So we've got 4 riders in the lead now. Christophe Moreau and David Lelay have joined the leaders. The gap, though, is only 2 minutes and 36. And guess what? The rain's starting again for the 4 riders out front. It's dry in the peloton, guys. There's the 4 names confirmed: Moreau, Lelay, Voigtler, Chavanel, all of them French. And as Paul Showin noted, Sandy Cassar, a rival Frenchman, started to chase.
Well, that's the way it goes. As you can see, it's had an effect on the time gap too, because it's down to just 2.5 minutes. But these are good roads to survive, Phil, as we look here, and that happens to be a quarry, by the way, if you weren't quite sure what it was.
Oh, right. I wonder what it was, yeah.
And they
nasty
could well
scar
be,
on the scenery, I must say.
Could well be quarrying the granite that a lot of the houses in this area are made of. The Breton houses are very culturally made from granite with a slate roof, and they have to be because it gets very cold and nasty here in the winter.
Yes, and the riders are a bit chilled today because the temperature in Fahrenheit is around about 63, in Celsius it's about 17 degrees. So it is a bit chilly for the height of summer, but that's the way the European summer is this time around, I'm afraid. These riders may get no warmer as we go south, but let's hope they do. We love the heat of the far south. The middle of next week, down in the Languedoc, down in the beautiful area of the Camargue. We know that many of the viewers watch, Paul, not to see the bicycle race, but to see the beautiful countryside and then go out and book the holidays.
Well, I think if they're watching today, they might not be picking Brittany for next year. So we'll have to hope that the advertising campaign that we're going to run for the next 3 weeks for France is going to show them some rather sunnier spots. And I'm sure that's going to happen, Phil, when we get down to the southern part of the country.
There are many other compensations apart from the weather in Brittany. It normally is very nice. I mean, Brest was superb for the start.
Of course, one of those would be the Breton crepes, which this area of France is very much renowned for. And of course, we're not too far away from Normandy, so probably the little tipple that you would like to add into the crepe there would be a good old Calvados.
I knew you'd say that. I never drink alcohol, but it has already struck home 8 times this year and 19 in 2 years as a professional. Well, there's a little bit of the art from the farmers here in Brittany as we gradually get towards the closing kilometres of the race today. A big peloton, but it's looking a little bit angry now as they push on. As rider after rider, they're bringing it back together. We are not sure, we're not convinced, are we, Paul, that this will be a big sprint because of the difficulties over the last few kilometres?
Well, last time the race came here, Phil, back in 2004, in fact, it was a small breakaway that got away on the run-in towards the finish. And the run-in towards the finish lends itself to the success of a breakaway because it is a very tortuous run-in with lots of these little roller coaster hills, if you like, that can end up being a very good launch pad to an attack and the success of a breakaway. But I don't think it's the breakaway of the 4 Frenchmen that's going to survive.
No, I don't think they'll survive, but we're looking now at the situation where those 4 Frenchmen are still working hard to stay away here as they continue. 38 kilometres, 1 minute 50 is the gap at the minute, and they're still doing what we know in the business as a bit and bit. Christophe Lumervel was getting cheered by the banner there. He's also, I think, a Breton in the race. Quite a lot of Bretons in this race.
Well, there certainly are. It's the hotbed of French cycling, and I have to say my computer now is predicting a little red spot for the breakaway, Phil, and that's an indication that the breakaway will not succeed. The red spot tells me that they're going to stay clear. The green spot says they're going to succeed. And unfortunately for these guys, it's showing a red spot at around about 15 to 20 kilometers.
Gert Stegmans is a likely winner. Crédit Agricole, Paul, have put a man on the front now, so the sprinters at last have had to crack and send men up to the front to drive. This breakaway has hung for a little bit too long for these guys now. 7.3 miles to go, just under 12 kilometres, and it is Crédit Agricole for the God of Thunder, Thor Hushovd. He says he wants to win the green jersey. He's the only Norwegian ever to have won it, and he wants it again.
Well, he needs to start laying the foundations for victory in a competition like that, Phil, because he didn't do too well yesterday on the climb up towards the finish, but it certainly was not his kind of finish, I have to say. But here you can see all of a sudden the urgency has come to the front end of this main field as the sprinters now are starting to bear down on their prey, and this is what they're aiming for. These four Frenchmen who lead the race by 52 seconds inside of 12 kilometers.
The beauty of Brittany, the high road over the top, but we are now making our approach towards the last couple of kilometres here. Paul, I take my hats off to these boys. We have seen how fast that peloton is riding, and these guys are hanging on.
The thing that goes to the advantage, Phil, of the four riders at the front is they've only had one man at a time from each team actually chasing them down. If they want to catch them now, one team has got to say, right, give it everything. We've got 5 or 6 guys on the front. Get the organisation going, and then we can pull them back, because if they don't organise themselves as a solid block right now, those 4 men are going to survive.
And we're getting down to the area which was the prologue time trial back in 1995. 24 seconds is the gap. The roads are unkind to the leaders now, I have to say, and they will turn into a block headwind. The wind is not quite as strong as when we came on air, but it is still pretty powerful.
Oh, that's not good. They just pulled out the neutral service vehicle. That's a bad sign, and psychologically it whacks a rider in the face, because he knows the main field are coming back very quickly, and all of a sudden, now that they look around behind them, Phil, it's a clean gap, and they will see just around that corner very shortly, they will see the front end of the main field coming.
Well, this is Christophe Moreau now. He went along as a reluctant rider into the breakaway, but all of a sudden he thinks he might be able to win the stage here, so he started to drive. Once the riders are inside 30 seconds, the race referees are removed from those gaps along with everybody else. It is now the peloton against 4 guys, and one of these guys has been in the lead now for all bar 2 kilometres of today's 164. And Francis Moreau, long since retired. Christophe Moreau is on the front.
Well, Moreau now is absolutely burying himself, but look at Thomas Voeckler looking over his shoulder, not feeling very confident now. He's wondering whether or not the main field are going to come back. The team, Phil, that has decided to set the tempo on the front end of the main field is Team Quickstep. Now, is it for Gert Stegemann or is it even for Matteo Tossato?
Well, Tossato will be in there somewhere. He is a strong man, but look at the efforts now. This is an incredible chase, and we'll see Team Columbia move up. They've got blue jerseys down there. They're the lighter all blue strip because they're thinking of Mark Cavendish as well. George Hincapie will be the strong man. There they are in the distance. Oh boy, they've left it late at 2.8 kilometres. This is not a done deal, and that's what Sylvain Chavanel thinks. He's moved off the front, and he's got just enough time to make the finish.
Well, he's got to give everything now. This is a do-or-die move. You saw there that Thomas Voeckler tried to get across the gap. Now that Chavanel has opened up his advantage, he has to ride and not even look back. He's got to make his body hurt. He's got to not listen to the message from his body to stop the pain. He's got to keep the pain for another 2.5 kilometres. He's actually extended his lead over the front end of the main field. This was the move that he had to make, and he's flown alone.
You are looking at a former time trial champion of France here, and in fact he is the current time trial champion. He just won it a week ago, as he now settles in to the chase on his own. He has the legs if he's strong enough, and he's the absolute hero of the day. He could have led this race for 162 of the 164 kilometres. There's the peloton now snapping up the breakaway one by one, but they may have left this a little bit late. The headwind could spoil the party though.
Well, it could spoil the party. Look now at the long line there of riders from Team Columbia. You can see they're trying to get themselves organised as well, and I think George Hincapie is right up at the front end of the main field, but peeling off. The rider from Quickstep is peeling off now. There's the main field. There's only one man left in front of them, and it's Chavanel.
Well, the grim look of realisation on the face there of Moreau and Voeckler. There's only one man left now, and that is Sylvain Chavanel. The clock is counting. 8 seconds it is. Cees de Paan are trying to guide Valverde safely off the front. This is a long, hard climb, but he's still there.
That was Luis Leon Sanchez on the front there for Cees de Paan, doing the pacemaking for the yellow jersey. The other teams now are starting to crack a fraction, and Chavanel has still got a 6-second advantage with 1.7 kilometres to go. There's a lot of tired bodies at the front end of that main field. Philippe Gilbert, Phil, has moved up into 3rd position. Team Colombia's organisation seems to have become a little bit disorganised, and now it's really going to be all up to Alejandro Valverde. Moving up the right-hand side there's a couple of riders from Silent Slaughter, but Chavanel really has to dig deep now if he wants this one to survive, and I tell you, this is a mean run into the finish.
But just remember, between kilometres 2 and 1, we're on a beautiful road. You can see it here, well barriered and nice and wide. We close down a little bit between 1 kilometre and 500 metres, and there's a nasty kick there. There's also a central obelisk in the middle of the road, but the catch is coming, and now it is every man for himself as we start with Fabian Cancellara, and there's been a crash already at the back of the race. A quick look at the riders. None of the favourites are there. That was Leif Hoster who was down, and one man is clear, and Cancellara, Sylvain says Cancellara,
yep.
Yes, while we switch to the back, Cancellara is at 1 kilometre. He's trying to do it again. He did it at Compiègne when he wore yellow last year.
Pepo Pozzato is coming across though in the lime green jersey for Team Liquigas, and they're in 3rd or 4th position. In fact, it's Cadel Evans taking control of the front end of the main field. Pozzato wants to win this again like he did in 2004, but you've got to be a tough man to catch Fabian Cancellara. This is just like the last stage of the Tour of Switzerland.
Well, this is the tricky bit now. They've just gone past one section of the course. He's almost on the line, but he knows this time at 500 metres he's not quite going to make it. Pozzato, a few deep breaths here. He's humped up into the slipstream of Fabian Cancellara, who's the world time trial champion, and the race is coming across the gap. Jerome Pino is there again. He was 3rd yesterday. The yellow jersey is going to have a go. Valverde, surely not. Another stage win for the champion of the Tour so far. Up on the outside, is that Hushoff, who's launched an attack? Yes, it is. It's the god of thunder roaring, but the challenge is coming, and this is Cholik who's on his wheel, but Thor Hushoff, I think, has taken it on the line, and that would have been Gerard Cholik who would have been up there in 2nd place.
I'll tell you what, Phil, there's been a little bit of a split in the bunch as well, though, so we'll have to do a serious amount of addition here this afternoon. And Philippe Gilbert is one of those riders who must have gone down in that accident as well, so he will disappear from the top end of the overall classification. Juan Antonio Fletcher coming across the line now, and this split in the final few kilometres, I think, Phil, really has affected the result of the race. Poor old Philippe Gilbert, he was looking to consolidate in the green jersey competition. He's lost out.
Felix Cardenas coming in with Gilbert. I think, though, that the referees will give everybody the same time because of the crash which probably caused the splits in the peloton. That's their decision, of course, but in the last kilometres or last 3 kilometres, if there's an incident, then they could all be given at the same time. But this is Felix Cardenas again finishing behind. He finished with Solar almost yesterday as well. The Roux look at the clock there by Philippe Gilbert. All that hard work by his team come to nothing. But Thor Hushoff has won his day.
Well, the big god of thunder, I have to say, Phil, he really is a powerful man, and he wanted that victory so badly this afternoon, and that was a good victory for him because the climb up to the finish was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be for one or two of these riders, and for a big man like Thor Hushoff to survive that climb and come up with the win, it really is quite special.
But apart from the crash which came, ironically enough, on the safe section of the run into the finish, and the dangerous section didn't seem to affect them at all. Riders, though, still drifting in here, and if they were in that big pack when the crash happened, then they will get the same time. This is how it all happened. I thought for a moment Valverde was going to grab the wheel there of Thor Hushoff and beat him to the line, but the rush was on. Chase there, I think it's Gerard Cholik who's gone after him, but the speed of Hushoff, it was a typical finish for that man. He's such a strong man as we go uphill.
Yep, it was definitely a big strong man finish there. You can see Robbie Hunter just over on the right hand side there, I think, coming across the line in 4th place, but you can see the devastation. There's big Maggie Baxter coming up to the finish line as well.
And the riders still coming home, well split up here. We'll wait and see what the judges decide on time gaps later. How they came over the line with our Honda ATV the results of the stage. There it is. Kirken of Team Columbia second, Cholik of Team Columbia third, Robbie Hunter finding his sprinting legs. He got Baller World. Little bit of joy for a team struggling just now with the loss of Sola today again. Erik Zabel still sprints well, doesn't he, at 38 years of age, finishing in 5th place. Further down here, Yuri Trofimov, one of the new boys on Bouygues Telecom, he gets 6th. Oscar Freire, Paul Sherwin's pick for the win, got 7th. Casper Elminger, and the top 10, Leonardo Duque. He's a Colombian rider on the French team Cofidis. Let's have a look at the Michelob Ultra overall standings. Valverde, there's no change here in the end. Kirken still looking for a second. Freire looking for another second. Kobo from Sonia Duval. Cadel Evans also looking for 1 second in the overall standings. And we'll see what the judges do about the time splits on the riders that fell off. David Miller sits in 7th place for Garmin Chipotle. He's poised brilliantly to do what he's prophesied he can do, and that's get the yellow jersey in the first few days of racing in the Tour de France. Oscar Pereira's up there in 11th. Top 15 completed by Andy Schleck, who did the big surprise a couple of years ago in the Giro d'Italia. May do one here in his first Tour de France. And Christian van der Velde, well, he slipped down to 19th at the moment. This is only a shuffle of riders on point. Our last day of the tour in Brittany. We're heading towards Nantes, due south from Saint-Malo, a ride of 129 miles, the longest so far. And the Navy's in town here. This is in fact the Madeleine River. It runs into the Loire, and together they go out into the Atlantic. It is overcast, occasional showers, and the winds are still with us.
He'll be under an awful lot of pressure because Kim Kirken is not really what I would call a true sprinter. He's a man who's taken advantage, really, Phil, of 2 hilltop finishes so far. This is what the standings look like. It's going to change.
35 points again for the win today. Kirken has 54. Valverde is second because of his win on stage 1. Hushoff comes into third with his win yesterday. Oscar Freire has been very consistent. He holds in 4th, and Philippe Gilbert, he is there in 5th. This is how it's scored today. 3 sprints along the way, very early on in fact. The first 3 riders get 6, 4 and 2. At the finish where it really counts, the winner takes 35. Then we progress downwards, and the last 20 places decreasing by a single point. 25th will take home 1 point. Well, let's have a look how it all began today. 179 riders. We only lost that one man, Hervé Duclos-Lassalle, on day 1 with a crash. And the riders get to kilometre 0 in a little bit of disarray, I think you could say here. And then straight away out of the gun went Will Frischkorn of Garmin Chipotle. He was quickly joined by Paolo Longo, Romain Feylieu and Samuel Dumoulin, and the 4 riders were setting off on a mission.
Well, it was a great day to try and get away early on, in the main field once again were controlled at the front end of it by the men in red and black, the men of Alejandro Valverde, who once they looked, Phil, at that breakaway said, it's fine, let those guys move clear. But again, it's a day of crashes. Fabian Wegmann, the national champion of Germany, he found himself very sharply on the ground.
Yes, he was okay though. He remounted here. He did in fact change his bike again. There's another view of the crash from behind, and the riders dodging him lying in the floor. Second year, the road race champion of his country. He looked a bit stunned, but he is in fact fine. And this is the problem today, I think, and it's going to be a problem until we finish this race. The sun is out, and then all of a sudden we are pouring with rain. So let's have a look then at how the sprints have gone, because as I said, they're all very early on. The sprint one at Saint-Pierre, Dumoulin was winning this and getting 6 points for the green jersey. Longo was second, Feylieu was third, which meant that Will Frischkorn was 4th. Will did a little bit better when it came to sprint number 2 at Becherel after 48 kilometres or 30 miles. He was third there. Then he cracked the jackpot. He won the last sprint of the day at Montauban, and ahead of Feylieu and Dumoulin. All the sprint are done out on the highway now, and as a result of that, Kim Kirken, he's happy enough. He's still in the green jersey and looking for those 35 points today, which the winner will receive. There's no more points along the route now, Paul.
Well, I'm not surprised to see at the front end of the main field the pale blue jerseys of Team Columbia, because they're trying to pull it all back together for their sprinter Cavendish towards the end. Nasty day, the weather this afternoon, feels 61 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 degrees Celsius. Rain is the order of the day, but however, we are looking at a west-southwesterly wind at around about 18 miles an hour, which means it would be a tailwind for the last 10 miles, and we're expecting speeds of 35 to 40 miles an hour for the riders on the run into the finish.
Well, I must say that wind will swing, as Paul says, during the course down towards the finish, but for a long time they're going to receive it right on the nose, which might slow things down. I can tell you the breakaway of 4 has pushed its lead out to over 14 minutes, but it is now starting to come down. We're waiting for the latest time check, but I think you'll find it's probably been brought back by a couple of minutes. There's a nice shot of Alejandro Valverde. Wanted to win stage 1, did so. And a routine day, should it be today for him, it means he will be last man out of the start house tomorrow in the time trial. And let me tell you straight away, tomorrow on Versus, we have in the car of Garmin Chipotle reporting to us there, Robbie Ventura, and he'll be right up behind the British champion David Miller. So that'll be pretty exciting, and it coming to you live in our coverage. On here, they're riding strongly into a headwind now, 12 minutes and 4 seconds, the gap at the moment. In the breakaway, the man who started it, Will Frischkorn, rides for the Garmin Chipotle team. He was out of the blocks like a rabbit today, and these other 3 chased him down, putting 4 riders up front. Paolo Longo there in the red jersey of Barloworld, and the red jersey of Cofidis is Samuel Dumoulin from the Windmill, as he heads up here in this group. Good working group. They've pushed on. They've wiped out all the prizes along the way. There's no other prizes left now apart from the sprint finish at the end of the day. There is Will, riding his first Tour de France, settled into it like a duck to water, this man has. He's enjoying this tour so far, 3rd day in, and he's riding very, very well indeed. There's a typical Breton road here as we head south, a long straight road. Well, while we watch the 4 leaders go up that long straight road, we can go back to this morning before the start, where Robbie Ventura was amongst the riders, and he's speaking with Barloworld's Danny Pate, because after all, this is a man in his first Tour de France, and these boys have a much different attitude when they get to the Tour de France. That's in the time trial tomorrow. We will have Robbie Ventura in the car with Jonathan Vaughters, and they will be behind David Miller. Oh my goodness, we've gone back to the race here, and this looks like Martin Mascant. Oh, that's one piece of bad luck here for Garmin Chipotle, because Mascant, the new young Dutchman at 24.5 years of age, finished 4th in Paris-Roubaix this year. That really put his name on the map. First year professional, well, not quite. He rode as a pro last year, but this is first big pro time. First time in the Tour. It looks like he's jammed in a piece of paper, it looks like, probably from the crowd. Or is it? No, it's a racing cape. All got wrapped around his brakes. Let's hope he sorts it out before the riders get too far away. There's his teammate, Will Frischkorn, at the back in the lead here. Well, as I said, at the moment, because of the time gaps between these 4 and the bunch, Frischkorn is actually 3rd in the Tour de France overall. Only Samuel Dumoulin in the breakaway has a slower time, and he would be naturally behind him overall. Meanwhile, back at the scene, they're still struggling with the wheel here, and look at that, no panic at all from Martin. Team car still going by. He'll get in amongst them, and he'll leapfrog his way through to the main peloton. And there they are down there. As they continue now, still running steady now. Boyd Telecom at the front, as well as Liquid Gas, Case Depend, Credit Agricole. Foster was left on the roadside yesterday, unceremoniously dumped in the closing kilometres, but was given the same time as the leaders because he fell inside those vital last 3 kilometres. There's the peloton, continues on.
Well, they're just going through here the small town of Mort de Bretagne. And it's been quite evident, I think, today, Phil, that a lot of riders from Team Columbia have been pretty happy to come up to the front end of the main field. And they're obviously thinking that today is one of the big chances that their young man, Mark Cavendish, has got of getting himself a victory. That beautiful church down there of Saint-Pierre, by the way, it was virtually burnt out and was rebuilt and restored, as you can see, rather nicely in 1998. It's a large part of the church itself dates back into the 14th, 15th centuries. Beautiful. Yeah, well, the funny thing is, just as a little anecdote there, Phil, the church clock at the top there was built by a peasant whose name happened to be Anquetil. That's right, in 1735. But then I don't think they'll be admitting to knowing Jacques Anquetil, because this is a Breton town, and Jacques was a Normand in the department next door. And as everybody knows here in France in sporting terms, the Breton and the Normand are in deadly rivalry. And so I think Paul Jacques, who won the Tour de France 5 times, no longer with us. He died at a comparatively young age of 55 from cancer. 9:53, the gap, still area view here. It's our last view of Brittany. The riders now leaving this beautiful department after 3 days.
By the end of the day, we'll arrive in Nantes, and then we're heading across the Loire as we journey towards the Pyrenees. There'll be plenty of beautiful pictures, though, as we do go south. The River Loire is the big river here in France. It runs from the west, from the east rather, into the west. It's over 700 miles across, the biggest river they possess. There is the peloton, and note, as I said earlier, a lot of different teams have put men up front, and that's a bad sign for the breakaway, I have to say. The gap coming down ever so slowly, but coming down. 9:35. Having said that, just gone up to 9:36. You see, you can't win. So the yellow jersey being worn today by Alejandro Valverde. Nobody else has worn yellow yet. He's got his wish. He will probably go in the time trial tomorrow in the yellow jersey, which means he will be the last rider to start the race of truth. Kim Kirken of Team Columbia, the American team, he's in the green jersey, but he's in danger of losing that today. But more importantly, Paul, as you've just pointed out, he is in second place.
I think that's what is more important. He will be starting just ahead of Alejandro Valverde, and then of course just a little bit further in front will be Cadel Evans, who will start 5 riders from the end. Not exactly the position I think Cadel would wanted to start from, because he would have liked to have had the time checks of Alejandro Valverde, who has the advantage, as you said earlier on in the week, of starting in last position. That's something I think he's really been quite keen
of. Silence Lotto, we should see them hopefully in the front shortly. 7 minutes 47. We learn things all of the time. Paul, yesterday, Robin McEwen apparently was behind a crash that took out his lead-out man, Leif Host. He gets back on his bike just in time to be balked by another crash. It wasn't his day yesterday, was it?
It certainly wasn't. You get days like that. Unfortunately for Robbie McEwen, it happened at exactly the wrong time. But lightning doesn't normally strike twice in the same place, so Robbie McEwen will be hoping for a very clear run in towards the finish today, I'm sure.
Well, just looking at the computer here, Georgie Hincapie's heartbeat still going well at 135. He's not under any stress at all. And this is at a speed of around 26.5 miles an hour. Now, this is that dicey bit, and not surprisingly, it has caught riders out here. Fabian Weckman still balancing on his bike. He's fallen once. There's the bottles on the road, indicating there probably was somebody falling down there, but they've remounted so quickly we didn't even see them. Thomas Longqvist is the Team Columbia rider at the back.
Well, you have to be very attentive, and that's in fact the dangerous point. It was actually coming into town where the road narrowed. Again, accentuating the fact that I always bring out that you have to ride at the front end of the main field, because the problems and the accidents, Phil, happen at the back end of the peloton.
Yes.
There you get a chance to see just sitting at the back, Thomas Longqvist, number 48 there, and he had actually gone to the back, I think, to take on board drinks and bottles for the rest of the team.
Well, as we look here, the Case Depart riders take a look at the Bouygues Telecom riders, say something that wasn't very complimentary, but I don't know why, because I think they're making the boys in black come back up to the front and do the day, I guess, but I don't think it's worked out quite as anybody expected. They thought there might be a lot of equal riders, but in fact, we've got a star rider of the Tour already in yellow, which I think wasn't the way it was meant to be. Stuart O'Grady there expected Fabian Cancellara to be the yellow jersey for a couple of days. But instead we've got Alejandro Valverde defending that 1 second lead overall. Well, it really is welcome to the rain now. Look at the spray off the back wheel there as it comes along, and it is soaking the riders now, Paul. This is a heavy one. We've seen it here at the finishing line on a number of occasions a day, and it does cause local flooding as soon as it happens, but boy, they're going to get wet now.
Yeah, it's not a lot of fun on a day like this. There's big George Hincapie there in second position. He will be using all of his experience here this afternoon, I think, Phil, to act as the pilot fish lead-out man for Mark Cavendish. Then after that, he'll hand over responsibilities to riders like, of course, the great sprinter Gerard Cholek, and of course Bernard Eisel, who himself was a very good sprinter on his own, and we've seen him finish in the top 10 of the Tour de France and Tour of Italy stages on a number of occasions. But I think they all realise on that squad that the fast man in their team is young Mark Cavendish.
The lowest time is the head of the team classification, and still the chateaus abound here. I think in the old days, about the 15th century, that probably had a moat all the way around it. It certainly is a beautiful piece of architecture. So as we continue to look here at the Chateau de la Goulet, The riders now, Paul, I think they're gambling here because, look, the gap has nudged out 2 seconds. That in itself is not significant, but the fact it's not going down is.
They'll be starting to panic quite a lot, I think, Phil, because of the fact that although they're starting to hurt themselves in the main field, the gap is not coming down dramatically enough. Just looking at this castle here, by the way, the central part of the castle is 10 acres. And it looks as if the original inhabitants are still there on one of the little porter posts around the top.
What a magnificent chateau that is.
Originally there was a castle on this same site way back in 1108, and it was built by the Duke of Nantes.
So La Grulée, the castle La Grulée. And back to the leaders with the British flag flying. We have an American in the breakaway. We're hoping it might be a British rider flying the flag tomorrow or even by the end of this day. But first of all, they've got to pull back these 4 riders. 6:46 and no improvement now. 45, what's that, about 27 miles, 28 miles from the finish, Paul. I would begin to be quite concerned about these 4. Too much about winning the stage because his big reward is going into yellow. There's the famous TGV that runs through France, the Train Grande Vitesse. Boy, that goes like an arrow across the countryside and is very rarely late, by the way. It's a great way of travelling here in France. There is the main pack. The sprinters teams are in a little bit of a state of panic now. They've got to ride awfully quickly to pull back 5 minutes in 15 miles.
There's another crash.
Oh, there's been a crash here. Well, this is always on the cards. They have hit the centre. It's not Rico because he's got a white jersey on for Sonia Duval. But what has happened here on the split.
Well, you know, you've just got to be so alert. It looks very much as if it's Kurt Adler Arvidsson there who went down, the Danish national champion.
And that looks like it might be a broken collarbone there, Paul, for the Sonia Duval rider. Still don't know who it is.
That would be Nicky Sorensen. Sorry.
Oh, is it Nicky? Yes.
Yeah, because
Angel
Arvidsson's
Gomez.
Norwegian. That's sad news for Angel Gomez.
Angel Gomez is looking rather seriously injured here as he clipped the centre of that reservation. A big shock. Now that also is going to disrupt the chase here.
Yeah, that is Nicky Sorensen down
there,
Danish
the champion
of Denmark.
Yeah, the Danish champion definitely is Nicky Sorensen. Gomez is on the floor here and looking the most injured.
Yeah, you recognise the Danish national champion. He's got the red jersey with the white cross across it. It's a little bit confusing because it also looks like the Norwegian national champion jersey. And both of those riders ride for Team CSC. And just looking down there at Sorensen, he's up and walking, and I think he'll be back on his bike very shortly. But that doesn't seem to be the situation, Phil, for Angel Gomez, who's down with Dr. Gerard Porte. Big Hincapie coming up to the front here. He's thinking about his man Mark Cavendish, but I still feel, Phil, that they've left it a little bit too late today, because in about 5 kilometers time they're going to swing around to line up in an easterly direction, and they'll pick up the wind. And
look at the split, Paul. Look at the split at the back.
That's been created by the crash.
But they are driving now. They will not be coming back to this group. This is Juan Manuel Garate on the right too. Boy, there's desperation on the faces of Quick-Step here, because their man Gert Stegmans. Now there's the split, albeit caused by the crash, but at 20 kilometers we pick up the tailwind, and these boys are going to have a fight for their lives now. And at this moment, of course, we don't know who has been left in that last peloton. There could be some big names down there. There's certainly Cees de Paan riders.
Well, this is the confusing part now when the race splits like this, because you have to look down the overall classification and see which guys have missed out on that split, who was at the back end of the main field at the wrong time. Because of that crash, because of these splits, you could find yourself losing 15 minutes on the first flat stage like this.
This is when the boys from the flatlands know how to ride now, if they put themselves in the right position. But I can tell you what, Paul, Gert Stegmans is in the front group, otherwise his team wouldn't be riding like this. And Euskaltel Euskadi, the climbers from northern Spain in the orange jerseys, they've also moved up here. They've got Zubeldia on their squad, a rider who always gets up the overall classification in the mountains.
They'll be looking after their man Zubeldia. There's the former Belgian national champion there on the right-hand side, and that is, of course, the Stein de Volder, who we've seen riding very well this year, and that's where the riders are coming to very shortly, Phil. And once they get close to the coast there, the wind is going to be even stronger.
Spread, and I don't see a lot of gains coming from the peloton to the leaders or from Menchov to the bunch. Not now. The gap is open. This, Paul, has to be a winning breakaway.
It's a winning breakaway. I am absolutely certain of that. Once we got to around about 20 kilometres to go, and I could see that the gap wasn't coming down quite that much, I knew the advantage would tip towards these guys, especially knowing the fact that coming into the finish they'd be picking up a tailwind, which after a long day in the saddle is going to feel like a breath of fresh air to them on their backs.
Well, it's good to see when people gamble. This is what the old Tour de France organisers used to like before modern-day tour riding came. The men who will gamble and go for gold from a long way out. Now, what's happened down there?
Looks like a quick-step rider there.
Well, that was a strange pace to off. He must have been in that group and just touched the wheel.
Where it happened, just at the back there.
Touch the wheels as they ran up the inside, down that shoulder there, and left him lying in the road. Thankfully, everybody missed him, including the following police riders there. He'll get back on his bike, but that's a valuable man lost in the chase now, because he'll go back to the next group, and he certainly won't apply any help there, because he'd bring Menchov and Ricardo nearer the front group.
Well, as we go under 10 kilometres to go for the main field, they are still looking for over 3 minutes to pull back that leading group of 4 riders, and they will now start to feel a little bit desperate, and they realise that they have messed up in their calculations. This is the next group on the road, the group of Menchov and Ricardo Rico. Once again, a flat stage has come up with a very strange result.
It has now. Normally, and nobody wants to see riders crash, the riders themselves would not attack fallen riders. That's the gentleman's unwritten rule of professional cycling. But you couldn't control this race because the finish was close. They needed to catch the leaders, so they've been caught, and they've got no choice now but to try and limit their losses on the day.
Well, Menchov and Rico are still looking for 40 seconds to catch up the rest of the main contenders who are in the main field in front. I haven't seen Cadel Evans, but I'm pretty sure the way Cadel Evans has been riding, he is in that group of the Maillot Jaune. He'd ridden at the front end of the main field for the majority of the day. These 4 riders now, Phil, with 6.5 kilometres to go, have got to try and figure out, how am I going to win this stage? An opportunity like this from a breakaway does not come very often in a career, maybe once only. And if you make a mess of it, you'll regret it for the radio. The last time the race came here as a bunch sprint shooter, Grady was 5th on that occasion. Today he's finding himself having to work for the team, charging into Nantes, and he obviously knows the run into the finish because he knew which way to go around that corner.
Well, thank heavens they've all got round that corner, the roundabout, as they come back into everybody together again. Remember the tailwind, that's stretching that line out now at 60 k's an hour, and the boys at the back are going to be right on the nose of their saddle there with their nose touching the extension.
Well, Denny Menchov is still hovering at 30 seconds. Race Radio is telling us behind the group of Alejandro Valverde. 3 kilometres to go, Phil. That is around about 4 minutes. We will now know whether or not Romain Feliu is going to be the new leader of the race. Well, I'm sure we know he's going to be the new leader of the race, but by how much? Going to take the overall lead with a 21-second advantage over the rider from Barlow World, Paulo Longo. But there's still the glory of winning the stage that is at hand here, Phil, this afternoon. France are looking for a stage victory. Maybe it's going to go to Samy Dumoulin at the back, because as you can see, Romain Feliu, he is riding his heart out for the clock. That's all he's thinking about.
You can see he's thinking of time. The other 3 are thinking of victory. I think the sprint will be between Dumoulin, who is a fast finisher in the right conditions, and William Frischko. And I think those 2 will be heading up first and second. Can't see Paulo Longo. He's a rather tall and lanky man. I don't see him being a pure sprinter. I've never seen him sprint in my life, so I don't know, of course. The other riders will be doing just what I'm doing, and they're setting. There goes the attack. Dumoulin's not leaving it to the sprint, and Will Frischko, and he's going after him too. Paulo Longo a little bit slower. Romain Feliu, he tags on the back. All he want to do is hold on there. That's a good attack by Dumoulin, Paul, but Frischko is up for it.
Well, Frischko has seen this. He knows he's got himself a chance of winning a stage in the Tour de France. So these 2 riders here are extremely tired. Now they're the ones who are first and second overall in the standings at the end of the day, but I think the legs have gone. But Romain Feliu has said, I've got to go for this. He wants every possible chance of staying in contact. He doesn't want to give any time at all away, but you can see Frischko has caught Samy Dumoulin there, and the Frenchman Feliu, I think now Phil is going to come back. Well, that was a bit of excitement, but I think it's all about to come together again.
900 metres to the finishing line, and Feliu is going to go straight by them, and Frischko must react. This boy is going to go out on a high in yellow, and as a stage winner, Frischkorn goes again. He drills himself here, but he's taking with him Dumoulin, who may still have some legs left. Forget Longo, he's gone now. But this is a French Tour de France just at the moment, because Romain Fillier, one win this year. He's only a kid, by the way. He's 24 years of age. He is in yellow tonight, of that there is no doubt. But Dumoulin is coming back, as is Frischkorn. And Frischkorn is going to have to go now, because it looks as though Samuel Dumoulin, who has ridden the Tour de France on 4 occasions, is going to get his day. But Fillier will not give up. He has kicked again. He's back into his slipstream. This is an awful long kilometre for these rides. Come on, William Frischkorn, for Garmin-Chipotle. But on the line, Frischkorn, that was the way we thought, Paul. Dumoulin gets the win. Frischkorn gets second. Fillier gets third, and the Maillot Jaune, and Paulo Longo. 4 musketeers who beat the peloton today in Brittany.
I tell you what, that was an awful long way. That was probably the longest final kilometre I've ever experienced, and Samuel Dumoulin used all of his experience there to go with the moves. He started the move outside of the kilometre. He was caught, he was passed, he dragged himself back in. Will Frischkorn, I think, getting himself a very good second place there. You could see the fatigue all over everybody's face there, and now we're going to see that Romain Fillier will get himself the yellow jersey at the end of the day, and he certainly will not be upset about that at all. I think second overall will probably go to the Italian rider Paulo Longo, because he was only 21 seconds adrift at the start of the day.
And third place, if the clock is kind and it ticks through 2 minutes, will be Will Frischkorn. And that means he'll be third from the end to go in the time trial tomorrow. And that was a wild dream, wasn't it? Well, I love to see adventurers succeed, and today they did. They were in the lead for 207.5 kilometres.
Which isn't bad when you think the stage was 208 kilometres long. It was from the gun they went this afternoon, and they caught everybody unawares. And I think for once the teams of the sprinters have made a serious mistake. Now they've still got to sprint out, because whether or not you feel it's important, 5th place is important for the sprinters, Phil, because as far as they're concerned, they have to get points on every individual stage. There's Robbie McEwen sitting in the middle there. Thor Hushovd over on the left-hand side. He needs to get himself some points. And Robbie Hunter's not too far away either.
Well, Hunter's there, but looks like Robert Foster's trying to come over the top here as well. No sign of Thor Hushovd, just peeping in. The green jersey, Kim Kirken in the backdrop there. But this is going to be Francisco Chiki, I think it is, on the far right. No, here comes Robbie. Well, would McEwen have won the day? Who knows now, but he's certainly going to come, as Eric, at 38 years of age, takes Robbie on right on the line. I'll wait for the photo.
Well, I think you might need to wait for the photo there, because McEwen was up alongside Eric Zabel, and right in the middle of the mix there also was Oscar Freire. And now we have to look at the clock to see what it tells us that these guys have lost, because this is the group of Ricardo Rico and Denny Menchov. Menchov there in third position, coming up to the front. He's not scared of doing a little bit of work for himself, but it's the clock that's going to tell just exactly how much time he has lost today, and he will not be happy with that.
No, he's lost around about over half a minute here, Denny Menchov, and the white jersey of Ricardo Rico, 4th in the line as he comes over it. About 2:41, about 30 seconds, but the news is that it went over 2 minutes there, that Fillier will be the leader. This rider here will be in second place. Longo's probably second, and Frischkorn will be up into third place in his first Tour de France.